There is a wire strung across this trail at exactly neck height, and I am alive right now by 4 inches, and the margin of my own life sitting in the dark on the side of this trail, trying to breathe, is the thinnest thing I have ever felt. 4 inches lower, and the wire catches my throat at 31 miles per hour on a dark trail in the middle of a forest at 10:40 at night, and I am not telling you this story. Someone strung this wire across this trail tonight. Not weeks ago, not months ago, tonight. I know this because I rode this trail 3 hours ago in the opposite direction on my warm-up loop, and there was nothing there. And now there is a steel cable fixed at neck height between 2 trees on the fastest descent of the entire network. And someone put it there while I was out here, and I am the only person who rides this trail at night, and whoever strung this wire knows that. They strung it for me. They strung it for a specific body on a specific bike at a specific time, and they are somewhere in this forest right now, and I have not moved from the side of this trail, and I do not know how close they are, and I need you to stay with me through every moment of this, because the wire is only the beginning of what I find on this trail tonight. And what I find is going to make you understand that this was not a first attempt, and that I was not the first rider they prepared this trail for. I have been mountain biking seriously for 9 years and night riding for 6 of those. I know what some of you are thinking. Night riding sounds reckless. It is not. It is a discipline with its own equipment, its own skills, its own particular rewards. And when it is done with proper lighting and on trails you know well, it is as safe as any technical riding. My light setup is a 1200 lumen bar-mounted light and an 800 lumen helmet light running simultaneously. At speed on a familiar trail in those conditions, I can see enough to react to natural obstacles well within my stopping distance. I have night-ridden this specific trail network, a system of purpose-built mountain bike trails in a regional forest park, more than 80 times over 3 seasons. I know every berm, every root section, every drainage crossing. I know this trail the way I know my own hands. The trail system has a main entry and exit at the parking lot, and the loops within it are one-directional with clear signage. On Tuesday and Thursday evenings, I do a full lap of the outer loop, approximately 14 miles, with the warm-up on the inner 2 miles, and then the main loop continuing outward and returning via the descent that the locals call the chute. A quarter-mile section of trail that drops 500 feet in a steep, consistent fall line with one sweeping berm at the bottom that carries your speed directly back toward the parking lot. The chute is the fastest section. On a good run, I hit between 28 and 33 miles per hour through the steepest part. I love this section. It is the reason I built up to this trail in the first place. On this particular Thursday in September, I do my warm-up loop, which takes me past the top of the chute descent at 7:30. The trail is clear. I note this not because I was specifically looking for wire, but because I am attentive to my trail surface by habit, and anything across the trail at any height would have registered in my lights. Nothing there at 7:30. I continue the main loop. 14 miles takes me approximately 70 minutes at my pace. I reach the top of the chute at approximately 8:40. I set my lights, I take a breath, and I drop in. I am in the first 100 meters of the descent when my helmet light, which is aimed slightly higher than my bar light because of my riding position, catches something. A line, horizontal, across the trail, at a height that my brain processes in the fraction of a second available to me as wrong, as not a branch, as too regular, too taut, too perfectly level. I go from 31 miles per hour to a rear wheel skid in the time it takes my body to respond to what my brain has registered, and I lay the bike down to the right side, and the bike goes one way, and I go another, and I hit the trail surface on my right shoulder and hip, and I slide, and I come to rest against the root base of a trailside tree in the dark, and I lie there for a period I cannot accurately estimate, somewhere between 30 seconds and 2 minutes, processing whether I am injured and whether I am alive. I am alive. My right shoulder is bruised and my hip is scraped through my shorts, and my right knee took a hit that will turn into something impressive by morning. My helmet has a new scrape on the right side that was not there before. I am alive, and I am in contact with the ground, and I can breathe, and all of my parts are in their correct positions. I look at the wire. I can see it from where I am sitting on the trail. My bar light, which is still on and pointing forward from the fallen bike, illuminates it clearly. It is a steel cable, gray, approximately 3 millimeters in diameter, fixed to a tree on the left side of the trail at chest height on that tree, which puts it at neck height on a rider, and running across the trail to a tree on the right side where it is fixed with the same tension. I can see the fixing method on the right side from where I am sitting. It is not a simple wrap. It is a fixed anchor point, a loop of wire attached to the tree with a hook mechanism that looks purpose-built for this. Someone brought specific hardware to this trail tonight. Someone brought the hardware and the cable, and they selected this point on the chute specifically. Not the top, not the bottom. This point, where the trail is fastest, where the gradient is steepest, where a rider is most committed and most in the fall line and has the least ability to stop. I stand up. I go to the wire and I look at it closely. I take out my phone and I take photographs, 9 photographs from different angles. I look at the anchor point on the left tree more closely. There is already a mark on the bark of this tree, an older mark, a groove in the bark at the same height as the current wire anchor, the groove of a previous cable that was fixed at this exact point before. This is not the first time. This wire has been strung at this anchor point before. The bark groove is healed enough to be weeks or months old. Someone has done this before. At this anchor point, on this trail, on the fastest section, weeks or months before tonight. I look at the forest around me in both directions. My lights show me the trail and the immediate tree line and nothing beyond it. The forest on either side is dark and close and gives nothing. I stand in the dark and I am making the calculation of whether whoever strung this wire is still in this forest and how close they are. I decide I am not standing on this trail. I decide I am moving. I pick up my bike. Both wheels still roll. The front fork took a hit, but it is rideable. I walk the bike down the remaining section of the chute, not riding it, staying alert, watching the trail ahead with my helmet light, checking the tree line on both sides every few seconds. I reach the parking lot. My truck is the only vehicle in the lot. I load my bike and I lock the truck and I call the police from inside the locked truck. The officer who comes takes my report seriously and he takes the photographs I show him on my phone and he walks the trail with a flashlight and he confirms the wire and he photographs it officially and he collects it as evidence. He finds the anchor mark on the left tree. He looks at it for a long time and he is quiet while he looks at it. I ask him what he is thinking. He does not answer the question directly. He asks me how frequently I ride this trail at night. I tell him weekly, Tuesdays and Thursdays. He asks me if I ride it at a consistent time. I tell him generally yes. I arrive at the parking lot between 7 and 7:30, and I am on the chute descent between 8:30 and 9, depending on my pace. He writes this down carefully. He asks me if there is anyone who might be aware of my schedule. I tell him I have mentioned it to other riders I know from the trail community. It is not a secret. I have discussed my Tuesday through Thursday night riding here with probably a dozen people in the last year. He asks me to write down as many of those names as I can remember. The case is open. No one has been charged. The hardware collected from the right side anchor of the wire was a commercial stainless steel hook of the type sold for rigging and sailing applications, available widely, purchased untraceable. The wire was standard steel cable, also widely available. The case officer told me on a follow-up call 6 weeks after the incident that the bark groove on the left side tree was consistent with repeated cable installation and removal, meaning the setup had been placed and removed at this location on more than one previous occasion. More than one previous occasion. Placed and removed. Someone rigged this trail, removed the wire before daylight or before other riders found it, and came back and did it again on a different night. And on the night they came back the last time they came back for a specific schedule, a specific arrival window, a specific time on the fastest descent of the trail. They came back for me, and I rode into the dark at 31 miles per hour 4 inches above dying, and the margin of 4 inches is the only reason I know how many times they had been there before and how specific the planning was and how patient the preparation. 4 inches. And I think about that on every descent I have ridden since. I think about it, and I check the trail ahead, and I think about patience, and I think about planning, and I think about the fact that they have not been caught, and the trail is still open, and somewhere out there is a person who stood in this forest at night and watched their wire and waited for the sound of a rider coming down the chute, and heard me crash, and heard the silence that followed, and stood in the dark trees, and waited to find out what the silence meant. Story number 2. There is a hidden room behind the bookshelf in this rental cabin, and I am standing inside it right now, and the walls are covered in photographs, and every photograph is a person sleeping in the bed in the room I was sleeping in 20 minutes ago. Every single photograph, dozens of them, arranged on the wall in rows, pinned carefully, some in envelopes with dates written on them, dates going back at least 4 years. People sleeping, men and women and couples, all in the same bed, all in the same room, all photographed from the same angle, which means the camera position is fixed, and the camera position is somewhere in the bedroom wall between this room and that room, and I have been sleeping in that bed for 2 nights, and there are photographs from 2 nights ago that I have not looked at yet, and I am going to look at them now, and I need you to understand that what is on those photographs is the most violating thing I have encountered in my adult life, and that the photographs are the second most disturbing discovery in this room. The first most disturbing discovery is what is at the back of this room in the dark that I have not reached yet. Stay with me. Do not go anywhere. Because what is at the back of this room is going to change the question from who built this room to who has been using it. And those are very different questions with very different answers, and only one of them has an answer that means I need to leave this cabin right now and not walk, but run. I booked the cabin 11 weeks before the trip, a 3-night stay in early October, the kind of trip I take once or twice a year to decompress, alone, somewhere without good cell service where the days are structured around nothing more complicated than hiking and reading and cooking simple food. The cabin is on a rental platform, 4.5 stars from 67 reviews. The listing showing a well-maintained 1-bedroom structure in a forested area of the Appalachians, a wood stove, a covered porch, hiking trails directly accessible from the property, the nearest town 12 miles away. The photographs in the listing show a cozy, cared-for interior, exposed beam ceiling, a reading chair by the wood stove, a bedroom with a quilted bed and 2 windows facing the forest, a living room with a couch, a coffee table, a television, and a bookshelf along the near wall filled with the paperbacks and board games that rental cabin bookshelves always contain. I read the reviews, mostly complimentary, a few noting the remote location as both the appeal and the limitation. Nothing unusual in any of them. I book it. I drive 4 hours on a Friday afternoon, and I arrive at the cabin as the light is going gold through the trees, and everything about the place looks exactly as described, and I carry my bag inside, and I exhale, and I settle in. The first 2 nights are what I came for. Quiet, cold enough for the wood stove, a long hike on Saturday that covers 8 miles of ridge trail and comes back to the cabin with the specific good tiredness of a day used well. I cook, I read, I sleep long and heavily in the quilted bed in the 1-bedroom. The kind of sleep that only happens when you are genuinely away from everything. I am happy here. I feel safe here. I feel, with the particular irony that only becomes clear later, completely private. Sunday is my last full day. I wake late, and I make coffee, and I am in the living room with my book when I notice something I did not notice in the previous 2 days because the angle from the couch is slightly different from the angle from the chair where I have been sitting. The bookshelf against the near wall. It is a full-height unit, floor to ceiling, the kind that is built into the wall rather than freestanding. I have been using it as a bookshelf, as it presents itself. But from this angle on the couch, the left side of the bookshelf does not sit flush with the wall. There is a gap on the left vertical edge, a shadow line. A gap of maybe a 1/4 inch between the left edge of the unit and the wall beside it. A freestanding unit pushed against a wall often has this gap. A built-in unit does not. A built-in unit is flush because it is part of the wall. I put my coffee down. I go to the bookshelf. I look at the left edge gap. I look at the right edge, which is flush. I look at the top, which is flush. I look at the bottom, which has a gap consistent with the left side. I put my fingers into the left edge gap, and I apply gentle pressure, pulling the unit away from the wall. It moves, not the resistance of something accidentally unfastened. It moves on the specific smooth arc of something that has been designed to move, hinged on the right side, opening toward me on the left. A door. The bookshelf is a door. I pull it fully open, and I look into the space behind it. The room behind the bookshelf is approximately 8 feet deep and 12 feet wide, and it runs the full width of the bookshelf wall, which means it runs along the full length of the bedroom on the other side. The ceiling is low, maybe 6.5 feet. There is no natural light. I use my phone flashlight. The walls of this room are covered in photographs. Floor to ceiling on the wall directly opposite me. Photographs pinned with small nails, in rows, some loose, some in labeled envelopes. All photographs of people sleeping. All taken from the same elevated angle that places the camera above and slightly to the right of the bed, the angle you would get from a fixed position in the upper section of the shared wall between this room and the bedroom. I look at the photographs for a long time before I touch any of them. I am understanding what I am looking at slowly, not because I am slow, but because the mind applies resistance to things that are genuinely outside its prepared frameworks. Then I begin to look at the dates on the envelopes. The oldest I find is 4 years and 3 months ago. There are envelopes from every month in between with varying numbers of photographs in each. This system has been operating for 4 years. 67 reviews on the rental listing over some period of time, most of them positive, none of them mentioning a hidden room. 67 guests in that bed, or 67 review-leaving guests, with the true number of guests likely higher. All of them photographed, none of them knowing. I find the envelope from Friday night. My first night. I open it. The photographs inside are of me. I am sleeping on my left side. The quilt is pulled to my shoulder. My face is visible in the camera's angle. I am completely unaware in every photograph. I am deeply asleep and completely exposed in a room I believed was private, and I did not know, and the person who set this camera photographed me sleeping without my knowledge on my first night in this cabin and put the photographs in an envelope with the date and placed them on the wall of this room. I look for Saturday night's envelope. I do not find a pre-prepared envelope for Saturday night. What I find instead, on the floor in the far left corner of the room, against the back wall in the dark section my phone light barely reaches, is something that makes the photographs recede to secondary significance in my understanding of how dangerous my situation is. In the corner there is a folding camp chair. In front of the chair there is an empty water bottle and a protein bar wrapper. Pressed into the carpet pile in front of the chair are the depressions of boot feet. Someone sat in this chair, recently enough that the carpet has not recovered. Someone sat in this chair, in the dark, in this room, on the other side of the wall from where I was sleeping, and watched. Not a camera, a person, sitting in a chair, in the dark, on the other side of the wall, while I slept. On Saturday night, while I was in this cabin, I leave the hidden room. I go to the bedroom, and I look at the shared wall. I find the lens, a small hole, half an inch in diameter, at cornice height where the wall meets the ceiling, partially concealed by a small decorative wooden piece that I would never have examined. The lens of a camera behind it, looking down at the bed. I do not touch it. I take photographs of everything. The room, the photographs on the walls, the camp chair, the water bottle, the boot depressions, the lens in the wall. I take my bag and I put it in my car and I drive the 12 miles to town and I call the police. The investigation that follows is something I can only tell you pieces of because most of it is outside what was shared with me as the reporting party. What I can tell you is that the lens and camera are confirmed and collected. What I can tell you is that the camp chair and the water bottle are collected for forensic processing. What I can tell you is that the owner of the property, who is not the same person as the listing manager, is identified and located and questioned. What I can tell you is that the investigation is described to me as active and ongoing, and that I am asked not to post publicly about the hidden room while the investigation proceeds. A request I am now choosing to no longer honor because it has been long enough, and because 67 reviews means 67 chances that another person is sitting in that chair in the dark right now on the other side of the wall from someone sleeping, and the photographs on the wall mean they have been sitting there for 4 years, and the investigation being active has not made the cabin inaccessible, and someone is renting it right now or next week or the week after, and they do not know what is behind the bookshelf. And now you do. And if you ever pull up a rental cabin listing and you see a floor-to-ceiling bookshelf against the bedroom wall, flush on the right and not quite flush on the left, you know what to do before you sleep in that bed. And you know what to look for at cornice height, where the wall meets the ceiling. And you know that the feeling of being completely private in a cabin in the woods is sometimes exactly that, a feeling and nothing more. Story number 3. A man I have never seen before in my life is describing my apartment to me in a parking garage, and he is getting everything right. He knows my apartment, and I have never let this man into my apartment, and he is telling me details that are not visible from the street, not discoverable from any public record, not available from any photograph or listing or any source outside of being physically inside my home. And he is listing these details in the flat, factual tone of someone reciting something they have memorized, looking at me while he talks. And he has not asked me a single question. He is not gathering information. He is delivering it. He wants me to know that he has been inside my apartment. He wants me to know that he knows it the way a person knows a place they have spent time in. He wants me to know this, and he wants me to know that he is choosing to tell me this in a parking garage at 7:40 in the evening with no other people visible in any direction, and then he is going to walk away, and there is nothing I will be able to do about any of it. I want you to understand the specific nature of what this kind of moment does to a person. It does not frighten you the way a loud, sudden threat frightens you. It does not produce adrenaline and flight response. It produces something colder and slower and more permanent. It produces the understanding that the boundary between your private world and the outside world has already been crossed, is already gone, was crossed before you knew to protect it. And the man walking away is not the end of anything. He is the notification that something has already begun. Stay with me through everything that follows, because what I find when I go back to my apartment that night, what I find has been done inside my private space, is the evidence that this was not a visit. This was a study. I have lived in my apartment for 2 years. 3rd floor of a 6-story building in a mid-sized city, a 1-bedroom with an open kitchen and living area, a bathroom off the short hallway, and a single large window in the bedroom that faces west over the building's parking structure. The parking structure is directly adjacent to the apartment building, connected by an enclosed walkway on each floor, so my commute from my car to my apartment is a 60-second walk. I have used this parking structure every workday for 2 years. I know the other regular parkers, the familiar cars in familiar spots, the rhythms of arrival and departure in the evening. I am comfortable in this structure. I have never felt unsafe in it until this evening. It is a Thursday in November, 7:40 p.m., and I am coming home from work later than usual. The structure is largely empty at this hour, the after-work rush having cleared, and I take the elevator to the 3rd floor, and I walk toward my car to retrieve a bag I left in it at lunch. The 3rd floor is empty of people. My footsteps echo on the concrete. I reach my car, and I open it, and I am retrieving the bag from the back seat when I hear footsteps approaching along the row. I straighten up, and I look. A man is walking along my row, apparently heading in the direction of the elevator. He is mid-40s, medium build, dark coat, unhurried pace. He looks at me as he approaches. I do the thing you do when a stranger looks at you in a semi-private space. I acknowledge and look away, and prepare for him to continue past me. He stops. He stops at a conversational distance, approximately 6 feet, and he looks at me with the specific quality of attention that means he knows who I am and has been waiting for this moment. He says my name, my first and last name, said with the familiarity of someone who has been saying it to themselves for a while. I look at him. I do not know his face at all. I tell him I think he has the wrong person. He smiles, barely, and he says no, and he says my name again, and then he begins to describe my apartment. He starts with the layout. He says the bedroom is on the left when you enter, the bathroom beside it, the kitchen along the right wall, the living area facing the west window. This is correct. He says the west window looks out over this parking structure. He says the kitchen has open shelving, no upper cabinets, the shelves running along the right wall in 2 rows. This is correct, and this is a specific detail that I installed myself, a modification from the original cabinetry that is not visible from outside the apartment and is not documented in any listing because I moved in after the last public listing. He says the bedroom has a bed against the north wall and a wooden wardrobe against the east wall and a reading lamp on the right side of the bed. He is correct on all 3 points. He says the reading lamp is the kind with an adjustable arm, silver, that I have bent toward the headboard. He is correct. He says there is a print on the wall above the bed, a landscape, mountains, in a dark frame. He is correct. He says there is a collection of bottles on the open kitchen shelving on the lower row, cooking oils and vinegars, and that I keep a specific brand of olive oil at the left end of that row. He is correct, and that is a level of detail that requires not just access but sustained observation, the kind of attention to a space that you pay when you're studying it. He stops talking. He looks at me for a moment, and then he says he just wanted me to know. Those exact words. He just wanted me to know. And then he turns and he walks back the way he came toward the far stairwell, not the elevator, and he goes through the stairwell door and he is gone. I stand beside my car for what I estimate is 4 minutes before I can move. Then I move. I go to the elevator. I go to my floor. I go to my apartment door. I look at the lock. No visible sign of tampering. I unlock it. I go inside. I go through every room immediately and systematically, and I am looking for signs of entry and disturbance. The layout is as he described it because he described it correctly. The kitchen shelving is as he described it. The bedroom is as he described it. The reading lamp is as he described it, including the angle of the arm, which I adjusted last week. The print above the bed is as he described it. I look at the west window in the bedroom, the window that faces the parking structure. I think about the west window, and I think about what is visible from the parking structure looking in. I go to the window, and I look out. The 3rd floor of the parking structure is at approximately the same height as my 3rd floor window. The distance between the structure and my building is approximately 40 feet. 40 feet with a direct line of sight into my bedroom window. 40 feet from where someone could stand in the parking structure I use daily, in the structure I park in every night, and look directly into my bedroom. I look at the angle. From the 3rd floor of the structure, looking across 40 feet into my window, you can see the bed against the north wall. You can see the wardrobe against the east wall. You can see the reading lamp on the right side of the bed. You can see the print above the bed. At night, with my lights on, with the bedroom curtains I rarely close because I am 3 floors up and I believed I was not overlooked, you can see all of these details clearly. And for 2 years I have been sleeping in that room with the lights on and the curtains open and the west window facing the structure where he stands. But the olive oil. The specific brand of olive oil at the left end of the lower kitchen shelf. That is not visible from the parking structure. That requires being inside the apartment. That detail has no innocent explanation. The police come that night. I give a description of the man, and I give them the parking structure as the location, and I describe everything he said to me. The detective who handles the initial report is thorough and serious, and she asks me all the right questions. She asks specifically about the olive oil detail, and I tell her it is not visible from outside, and she notes this carefully. She asks about my door lock, and I tell her it shows no sign of tampering, and she says that experienced entry is often not visible. She asks if I have had any service people in the apartment in recent months, maintenance, delivery, anyone with legitimate access. I think through this carefully, and I give her names and companies and dates. She asks if I have had any social gathering where multiple people were present in the apartment. I tell her I had a gathering of about 11 people in August. She asks me to compile a list of everyone who attended. I have since installed new locks, a reinforced door frame, a security camera inside covering the main living area, blackout curtains on the west window, and a camera facing the front door. The man in the parking garage has not been identified from my description or from the parking structure cameras, which were not angled toward the location of our conversation. The investigation is open. No one has been charged. And I think about the gather in August, the 11 people who were in my apartment, who moved through my kitchen and saw my shelves and my olive oil at the left end of the lower row, who were in my bedroom for whatever reason. People move through a host's bedroom at a gathering. I think about which of those 11 people I know well enough to know them, and which of them were brought by other people and were new to me that evening. I think about a person at my gathering, someone on the edge of my social circle, moving through my apartment with the specific attention of someone who is memorizing it, looking at the reading lamp and the angle of its arm, looking at the print above the bed, filing it all away, looking out the west window at the parking structure 40 feet away and understanding the sightline, understanding how much they could confirm from out there and how much they already knew from in here, and then leaving my gathering and going to the parking structure and looking in, night after night, from the structure I use every day, until the night in November when he decided I had been patient long enough about not knowing, when he decided I should know, when he walked to me in the empty parking structure and said my name and described my apartment to me, and said he just wanted me to know, and then walked away, and left me with the knowledge, and everything the knowledge means, about access, about observation, about what has already happened in the space where I sleep, and what may happen still.